This series contains adult language and descriptions of graphic violence. Listener discretion is advised. Hello, Death by Southwest listeners. Welcome to Death by Southwest, a Thursday edition, which is going to be a true crime headlines edition. Of course, the cat just jumped up here. If you are watching this and not just listening to it, you may notice that I have a new background. No, I did not redo my office. I wish that my office looked like this. This would be cool. I created this virtual background on ChatGPT, I believe, maybe in Canva. I did a bunch in both because I feel like my background is just kind of like, ugh. It's like very brown, like brown desk, brown doors behind me, brown. I don't know. It just all looks like muted colors. It literally looks like I'm in the desert. Everything just feels kind of like brown and neutral. And I tend to, like in the summer, and when I'm out in the sun a bunch, my skin looks kind of like it just blends into the background. And I don't like it. It just all feels kind of like blah. So I thought, well, let's try a new background. So if you're watching this, please let me know what you think. It looks like my arm keeps disappearing. So I tend to have one arm with it. There it is. Well, that's kind of fun. So maybe that adds to the excitement. Ooh, is it there? Is it not? Um, yeah. If you're watching and if that makes any kind of difference to you, what the background looks like, probably not. Please let me know. I hope everyone's having a great week. It is Thursday, like I said. I've been keeping a running list of things that I want to just like blab about, basically, things that are happening in my life, things that are happening in the world, things I've seen on TV. But I do tend to find that people who are here for the true crime really dislike that, which is why I've stopped doing that. I really haven't done that in a long time because I do it on Patreon. So, if you like that type of content, then you can head over to Patreon. I'm considering doing it at the end of this episode instead of like making a whole new episode where I'm just talking about nonsense. I don't know. Let's see how these three true crime headlines go that I have for you today. I apologize again for not doing this last week. I am trying to be more consistent, but life happens. And I think I told you guys, I don't think I just shared on Patreon. I think I shared that I had a job interview last Thursday. Have not heard yet. My fingers and toes and every other body part is crossed, hoping that it works out. Another, freelance gig. I'm absolutely still working with Jim, but there you go. There's a mini update. So let's jump into our true crime headlines. Remember, these are just stories that have been in the news somewhat recently, and I don't do a deep dive. I'm doing just kind of like a surface dive into these stories, and then writing a brief overview to share with you guys, stories that I think are interesting. They don't all take place in the Southwest, although our first one does. And our first true crime headline today is called AI Brought Him Back. So we've seen a lot of wild things in true crime: family betrayals, DNA miracles, undercover stings. But I never did think that I would read about a story where the murder victim speaks at his killer's sentencing using AI. Now, this shouldn't be shocking, really, nowadays. If you are ever on social media, I'm sure you've seen there are videos. The one that comes to mind is like Theo Vaughn, the comedian. He does clips from his podcast and it's him talking, but they've turned him into an AI baby, like an infant, and it looks just like him. And the mouth moves in perfect time with everything he's saying. It's amazing and frightening. if I was a very like public person or famous person or celebrity, it would make me nervous that my likeness could be cloned and or I guess not cloned is not the right word. Uh duplicated, maybe cloned works, but duplicated by AI so easily and so realistically because at a certain point we're not going to know what's the AI and what's real. That's a whole nother podcast episode, I feel like. So let's get back to this. So, yes. So the murder victim speaks at the killer's trial using AI. This is the story of Christopher Pelkey, a 37-year-old Army veteran and father whose life was cut short in a senseless road rage shooting, and how even after death, he had something to say. So let's rewind to November 2021 in Chandler, Arizona. Christopher Pelkey was driving his motorcycle along the road, just an ordinary day. At some point, he crossed paths with James Padilla, a man behind the wheel of a Dodge Charger. We don't know exactly what triggered the confrontation, maybe a gesture, a lane change, a flash of ego, but we do know how it ended. Pelkey pulled up beside the car, beside the Dodge Charger. Words were exchanged, and then Padilla pulled out a gun. He fired once, hitting Pelkey in the chest. The motorcycle drifted, then collapsed. Christopher Pelkey died at the scene, a decorated Army veteran, dead over a moment of rage. Small side note, my mom told me my whole life. Like she would scream her head off in the car, profanities when people would cut her off and stuff. But she always, from a very young age, told us, do not flip somebody the bird. Like, don't give them the finger. Don't, she'd always do this as like a very, Italian thing to do. At least that's what I've been raised to believe. And she said, don't ever roll down your window. Don't ever let the other person know that you're upset because you have no idea who's carrying a gun and they could just shoot you and drive away. And so this instantly made me think of my mom and her words of wisdom, which according to this, they were words of wisdom, that's for sure. So Christopher Pelkey was killed over road rage. Padilla, the guy who shot him, fled the scene, but not for long. He was arrested and eventually pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. And that's where things could have ended. Another tragic story in a long line of senseless killings that we hear about every day. But Pelkey's family, Christopher Pelkey's family, had other plans. Enter artificial intelligence. Christopher's family wanted the court and James Padilla, his murderer, to understand who he really was. Not just a name in a case file, not just a victim on a slideshow. They wanted the judge to hear his voice. So with the help of a creative team and hours of video and audio taken from Christopher's life, they reconstructed his face and voice using AI. It wasn't just a voiceover or a tribute montage. It was Christopher Pelkey, brought back to life through technology, speaking directly to his killer. In the video, his likeness sits in a chair, eyes clear, voice firm. He talks about growing up. He talks about his time in the Army, the things that he loved, family, motorcycles, making people laugh. And then, in a moment that stunned everyone in the courtroom, he turned to Padilla, his murderer, and said, "I forgive you. In another life, we probably could have been friends." Can you imagine hearing that from the person you killed? I mean, I can't imagine killing somebody, but how odd and probably very impactful, I would imagine. And from what we know, that the room went silent, the judge was kind of awestruck, and Padilla broke down and wept openly, cried in court. Christopher Pelkey's wife and family sat behind the prosecution, tears streaming down their faces. This wasn't just a moment of technological novelty. It was something deeper. For them, it was a form of closure. Now, let's talk about the implications here because this is a true crime podcast. So, never before this, apparently, has a victim used a deep fake style AI to deliver a victim impact statement after death in court. And it opened up a lot of questions in the legal world. Is it ethical? Is it admissible? What happens when AI is used to manipulate or misrepresent and not used to honor a victim like this? We don't have the answers to those questions yet. But in this case, there was no question. Pelkey's family approved every single frame. His wife oversaw the edits. The voice used AI models trained exclusively on his own voice recordings. This wasn't some kind of like horror show. It was a digital resurrection kind of. It was eerie, but it worked. Padilla was sentenced to 25 years in prison. The judge credited the statement with giving him a clearer picture of the man whose life had been taken. And Christopher Pelkey's family said for the first time in over 2 years, they felt at peace. So what do we do with this? This isn't exactly a murder story. I realize that. And remember, not all of the headlines that I'll talk about in these true crime headlines, I've given myself no rules. So it doesn't have to be a murder. It can be anything related to true crime. And this is. So this story really stuck with me because, as you know, if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, I'm a huge fan of ChatGPT, and I've recently discovered other AI models. I was just like a full ChatGPT girl. I didn't realize that there were other different AI models that might be better at other tasks. And so I'm both a huge fan of AI and all these technological advances, and I think they can be incredibly helpful and change our lives and our world in positive ways. But I also am certainly aware of the many negative ways that these technological advances can also impact our lives. But we do live in a time where technology can revive voices, manipulate faces, and simulate someone's presence. And there are definitely dangers in that: deep fakes, misinformation, all of that. But I think this story highlights the fact that every once in a while, and hopefully more and more, someone uses these advances to do something human. You know, if you really think about it, this is using AI and technological advances. I feel like I've said that a lot in the past minute. Sorry. Uh, for a very human reason, to say goodbye, to allow loved ones to say goodbye to someone they've lost, to say, I forgive you to someone who's wronged you. It gave Christopher Pelkey, and potentially in the future will give people a chance to say things they never got to say. Like, can you imagine if somebody wrote a letter or recorded their voice, like, things that had a journal, things like that, and they died, and you were able to have them read that to you in their voice with their likeness? It could be, I mean, it could be traumatic. It could also be very healing for people. And for Christopher Pelkey's family, it was healing. And for the first time ever in a courtroom in Arizona, the dead kind of came back to life. I just thought that was super fascinating. Okay, we're going to move right along to story number 2, called Cold No More. She was found stabbed 24 times in a house that had been set on fire. No suspect, no arrest, and no motive. For 17 years, the murder of Linda Malcolm sat quietly in a stack of cold case files until a Navy veteran, a journalist, and a DNA match started asking the right questions. And now, this unsolved mystery from Port Orchard, Washington, might finally be getting cracked open. So let's go back to when this happened, April 30th, 2008. It was just after 3 a.m. when firefighters were called to a house fire on Sydney Avenue in Port Orchard, a sleepy coastal town about an hour from Seattle. When they arrived, the back half of the home was engulfed in flames. Inside the front room, they found the body of 47-year-old Linda Malcolm. She wasn't just a fire victim, though. She had been stabbed more than 20 times in the chest, neck, abdomen, and arms. There were defensive wounds on her hands. She fought hard, but It wasn't enough to save her. Investigators quickly determined that the fire had been set intentionally, likely to destroy evidence. And just like that, a murder was buried in smoke. So, who was Linda Malcolm? She was a former U.S. Navy paralegal, divorced, and had grown children. She was known as a kind, smart, and fiercely independent woman, a woman who didn't take crap from anyone. She lived in that rental house where she died for less than a year and kept mostly to herself, though neighbors occasionally saw her walking with a cane or bringing groceries inside. Police found no signs of forced entry, no robbery, and this is important. She had no obvious enemies, no one. They interviewed dozens of people, friends, former coworkers, ex-boyfriends, but nothing panned out to anything. Her phone records, her social life, her finances, all clean, all in order, nothing suspicious or weird. Eventually, the leads, and there weren't that many to begin with, they kind of dried up. And like so many unsolved crimes, Linda's case faded into the background until 2023, when a new team started digging. A former Army counterintelligence agent named Jennifer Buckholtz and journalist George Jared began reinvestigating Linda's case through their podcast called Break the Case. The show focuses on unsolved murders, but this one felt different. As they dove in, they found that evidence had been shockingly underutilized, which I know we've heard in even in recent cases we've covered on here. So DNA had been found under Linda's fingernails. There had been partial fingerprints found at the scene, blood droplets, even items that had not been burned and had been preserved for years, but no one had followed up with the more modern forensic techniques that we have today. Jennifer and George decided they were going to change this. So they used investigative genetic genealogy, IgG, the same method that was used to catch the Golden State Killer. They worked with Linda's family. They uploaded the unidentified. I'm sorry, guys. I had to pause there because I was like, wait, do I know that we caught the Golden State Killer? And then I said to myself, don't say that because you're going to sound like an ignorant fool. So I'm just going to leave that there. Um, so, working with Linda's family, they uploaded the unidentified DNA to genealogy databases, slowly building out a family tree of the possible suspect. And then they got a hit. They identified the suspect's family and potentially the killer. So they couldn't 100% zero in on the killer, but they were zeroing in on this person's family. But here's where it gets twisty because the person of interest, or the person they thought was a person of interest based on this DNA and genealogy, never been arrested, not publicly named. And the local sheriff's office is refusing to confirm whether charges are coming. Why? Well, sources say the man they've zeroed in on served with Linda in the Navy decades ago. They weren't friends, not exactly, but they did know each other. One theory is that he tried to rekindle a connection with her. He was rebuffed and reacted violently. Another theory, he'd been harboring a grudge for years based on something that happened when they served together. And the fire was, like I said, clearly about erasing the scene. But if he was trying to erase Linda, it didn't work. Now, remember, theories about the suspect, who this person is, how this person is connected to Linda, what the possible motive is, they are just theories. These are not facts. Law enforcement has not confirmed these details. They really haven't confirmed anything. These are based on discussions from this podcast about her. So now a Facebook group today called Justice for Linda Malcolm is active again. Her children, who are now adults, are begging for updates. And the people working the case say they've never been closer to an arrest. One of Linda's friends put it best when she said she didn't deserve to be forgotten. And as it turns out, she wasn't. Because, you know, this is not, I've learned doing this podcast, and maybe I had an inkling of it. You know, you hear it on other podcasts and you hear it on the news that there's so many cases that are cold that are on. I mean, they had, there's TV shows that are dedicated to like fictional TV shows and true TV shows. I'm thinking the show Cold Case, which I've never seen. I assume is dedicated to cold cases and unsolved mysteries. I don't know, but I think they do cold cases on that. I should know that. Point being, there are tons and tons, especially from back before all of our technological advances today, tons of cases, murders, missing people, everything that go completely unsolved and just go cold and people forget about them. Linda wasn't famous. Her death wasn't in the headlines for that long. And so this was a case that did go cold and probably would have stayed cold because there's just too many cases for law enforcement to keep going back. But it didn't because somebody decided to fight and find the truth. A complete stranger, a journalist, and a sliver of DNA and a lot of determination now have brought this case back into the light. So it's amazing, but it begs the question, how many Lindas are still waiting for someone to step up and reinvigorate their case, reinvestigate their case, put the DNA from their case into the new technology? How many murderers are out there that are waiting to be caught and could be caught if some of these cases were looked into? So this case is still active and there's a good chance it won't be cold for much longer. So this is definitely one that I will come back to when we do a monthly roundup and update you if there are any updates at that point. I mean, it makes me think, I'm going to jump into the next story real quick, I promise, but there are so many people looking for jobs, out of work, things like that. And I know that it takes some type of specific training, although the people who started looking into Linda's case, it was a journalist. Well, it was Navy counterintelligence. That was the other person. So I guess they do have a special skill set for this. But wouldn't it be great if it was like you could take a class or two classes, something like that, that would give you, they do a background check that kind of gives you the tools, at least the basic surface level tools to look into some of these cold cases, or not even that, but just go back through cold cases, see which ones have preserved DNA or DNA, blood evidence that has not been run through current technology. Like, couldn't the the FBI, the police department in each city, each town find people who are willing to just sit there and go through case files and be like, oh, there's DNA evidence in this case. It is preserved. It's in the evidence locker. I don't know if that's actually where it's kept, but it's in the evidence locker. Okay, I'm going to mark this one and here we go. And this should be run through current technology. I don't know. That may sound very, very ignorant and much more simple than it actually is. I'm sure that I'm simplifying it. So I'll shut up because I don't actually know if any of that's possible. But it would be cool if there was some cool. It would be awesome. Nope, not better. Whatever the word is, it would be something if there is a way to, without having to reinvestigate all these cold cases, at least go through and see which ones have some type of DNA evidence that was never processed because we didn't have the tools to process it, and then process it now. I did not need to go into all of that. Anyways, we will keep our fingers crossed that we get answers on Linda soon and that her family and friends do. And to round out our 3 true crime headlines today, we have the cop, the robber, and the bicycle. In a quiet corner of South Australia, he was known by a nickname that almost sounded like a joke: the Bicycle Bandit. For over a decade, he committed a string of armed robberies, masked, silent, and always with a getaway plan on two wheels. No one knew who he was. No witnesses ever got a good look. It was like he'd pedal in and out of existence. And then nothing. The robberies stopped. The myth faded until 2023, when investigators knocked on the door of a former police officer and firefighter and unmasked a man who'd lived a double life for nearly 20 years. The bicycle bandit spree began back in 2004 in and around Adelaide, South Australia. Banks, post offices, betting shops, small scale places, but frequent. His MO was oddly theatrical. He'd arrive wearing a full face covering, like a balaclava or a helmet, gloves, all black, sometimes a rifle, sometimes a pistol. He was in and out in minutes and then vanished down the street on a bicycle. No car, no partner, and rarely any witnesses. It was old school, it was efficient, and it was like almost weirdly polite as far as robberies go. Police linked a string of 12 confirmed robberies to the same suspect between 2004 and 2014, and yet they had nothing. All that they knew is that the same person did all of this. They had no other idea anything about this person. No DNA, no security footage that was really worth a damn, not even a clear description. It was like this robber was a ghost on a bicycle. That is until the robberies suddenly stopped. From 2014 to 2022, it was just radio silence. This person just disappeared. Investigators assumed that this bicycle bandit had either died, gone to prison under another name, obviously not the bicycle bandit, or simply retired. But behind the scenes, forensic genealogy was starting to change the game. And in 2022, South Australia police decided to run one last Hail Mary on the bicycle bandit. They uploaded DNA left at the scene of one of the final robberies to international family tree databases. The same approach that cracked the Golden State Killer case. I don't know why I have that in here twice. They built out an ancestral map using data that went back all the way to the 1800s. They identified distant cousins, and then they narrowed it down through old-fashioned investigation techniques. And all of that led them to a name. Kim Allen Parsons. Now, here's where it gets a little crazy. Parsons wasn't just a local. He was, like I mentioned, a former police officer, a volunteer firefighter, and a very respected community member. He lived off the grid for years in a converted shipping container. Sorry, that was a hard S there. Shipping container. I'll sit back when I say it. On a remote patch of land surrounded by trees and isolation. Neighbors described him as quiet, rugged, and a bit of a bush survivalist. He also had an obsession with true crime. According to court records, Parsons had studied famous cases and escape tactics. He allegedly planned his routes using topographic maps, avoided main roads, and maintained a strict no digital footprint lifestyle. Think Ted Kaczynski, but in Australia and with a bike. Police executed a search warrant at his property in late 2023, and what they found was a makeshift bunker, bicycles, multiple firearms, and meticulously cataloged robbery research. He was arrested on the spot. He later pled guilty to multiple charges of armed robbery. In court, he claimed he had turned to crime out of financial desperation. A failed marriage, mounting debt, and no support is what led him to it. But prosecutors painted a different picture. A man who enjoyed the control, the planning, and the chase. He didn't just want the money. He wanted to get away with it. And for a long time, he did. At sentencing, Parsons showed little emotion, but in a moment that caught the courtroom off guard, he agreed to repay the stolen money and offered to face his victims directly, saying, "I didn't think about them as people, but I do now." Still, he received a pretty lengthy prison sentence, and his case is now being studied by international law enforcement as a model for long-term evasion and the power of forensic genealogy. What I like about this story is that it's quiet. it's not a flashy story. There's no body count. There's no salacious twist. It's just a man on a bike robbing banks in the middle of the day and then disappearing into the suburbs of Australia for 10 years. It's just, it's pretty impressive, honestly. If he had hurt people, killed people, maybe I would feel differently, but he didn't. He just stole money, which kind of makes me think like how many other criminals are out there just kind of waiting it out, assuming that law enforcement or the system will just forget them because more criminals keep coming along. They're just counting on time or memory or overly busy, bogged down detectives to kind of do the work for them by not finding them. But Kim Parsons did learn that that isn't always the case and that time was no longer on their side, especially not when DNA can remember everything. So this genealogy, I want to say it right, forensic genealogy, international family tree databases, and creating an ancestral map. I mean, I would love to hear from you if you have submitted your DNA to something like, what is it, 23andMe, or I know there are other ones. I know Jenna and I have talked about this in much earlier episodes that neither of us would ever do that, not because we're planning to commit a crime, but just, I don't know. Things get messed up, things get misplaced, things get what if my DNA gets confused with somebody else? It's so unlikely. But I don't know. Or maybe one day I'm going to commit a crime. Who knows? I don't want to make it any easier for people to find me. That's not really why. I don't know. I just, something about it weirds me out. And, millions of people do it. So obviously I'm sure it's fine. I'm not trying to freak anyone out who's done it. But to me, it just freaks me out I know I leave DNA everywhere that I go in the world, but to like specifically put it in an envelope, mail it off to people, and then have it put in a database just feels ugh, not right to me. So, but I would love to hear from if you have done this. I'd love to hear from you. Like, why did you do it? And do you have any concerns? Like, does it make you feel weird or I don't know? Do you ever worry about it? I'd love to know because I don't know anybody like I've not done it. Jenna hasn't done it. Michael, Mark, no, nobody I know, none of my friends have done it. So I'd be curious to hear yeah, what you guys think if you have done it. And that's it for this week's true crime headlines. If you liked this format, kind of short, sweet, and to the point, let me know. I don't want to keep doing something that people don't enjoy. So I know I've had several people um, leave comments that they like this format. I really appreciate the comments on Spotify. I saw a good review on Apple today. It didn't say anything about my mouth noises. It did. They were talking about me and Jenna though, so I have a feeling they're on old episodes. But I haven't been looking at the comment. I haven't been looking really. But it's always nice to see a nice comment where they say that they like it. And they, of course, they were like, we love this sense of place, which I'm not doing as much anymore. But anyways, that's it. Until the next true crime headlines, you guys stay safe out there and never assume that a case is cold just because it's gone quiet. Because as we saw today, this DNA and genetic forensic genealogy is really putting things back on the map, which is a good thing. Uh, I mentioned that I was going to talk about some things after this so that people who are just here from for the true crime could sign off and other people could stay on. But I don't know. After I talk to you guys about true crime, I feel like, no, I don't want to talk about myself. I don't want to talk about like my own things. I want to stay on true crime, but I don't have any more. I do actually have other mini true crime stories written, but neither of them are, well, one of them is about Ruby Frankie, which I feel like is super overdone. Even I don't really follow true crime headlines until now. um, And even I knew that story. Like I just started listening to yesterday because I was cleaning the house, and I do like to listen to podcasts when I clean the house. Uh, I started listening to the Karen Reed story. I know that like everyone is probably like, yeah, that's super old. And now they're retrying her apparently. I didn't hear anything about this. I remember I just watched the Gabby Petito documentary like 2 weeks ago, and I didn't really know anything about that either. I really try to, I'm really good at getting into a depressive, kind of sad, anxious headspace without the help of like the media and the news channels these days. So I try to avoid the news. I will look at the New York Times, just get some headlines just to like have an idea what's going on in the world. However, I do try to avoid it because I take it too to heart. It's depressing, it's sad, and that may sound ignorant or like burying my head in the sand, but I guess that is what I'm doing because because I'm trying to stay sane. I did post on Patreon yesterday or the day before just that like I've been feeling a little sad and I can't place why. And one of the patrons, I haven't responded to him yet, but I should find it because it was funny. It did make me chuckle. I was like pretty close to crying and for literally no reason. I don't know. And on my phone, I saw that that something had popped up. He said, "Hey, Margot, there were two ships in the ocean. One was carrying a blue paint, the other was carrying red paint. Then they collided and were marooned." It's so silly, but it made me laugh. And other people have left comments, but I haven't read them yet. Why can't you hear a pterodactyl going into the bathroom? The P is silent. Oh, going to the bathroom. I fucked that up. That one's so good too. What is a ghost's favorite drink? Kool-Aid. I, I love that I have three. I may have more, but I have at least I do know all three of these men. I have three male patrons. I think, no, there are other male patrons, but I certainly have more female patrons, is basically what I was getting at. And more female listeners, which is understandable. You know, it's funny. I'm talking about how I have female listeners, and on my list of things I wanted to talk about was perimenopause, because I'm just learning about it and finding it disturbing. But I'm not going to talk about that right now. So obviously, I have more female listeners, but I love that I think all I posted, let's see, what did the post say? I think all I posted is give me some good news or tell me a joke because I'm feeling a little just like blue. And I love that all three dudes left a joke and they were all funny. So thank you to all three. You know who you are. Um, Eric, Dave, and Zeka. Thank you very much. That made me laugh. And Eric, I did see yours. Like I posted that and you responded. I just posted it from my phone and you responded, your response popped up. You know, I get notifications from Patreon, but I only see them if I'm looking at my phone. They like pop up at the top and then they disappear. And so I happened to see that and I was kind of like almost crying. And then I saw that and it made me laugh. So I really do appreciate all of you guys. I appreciate every single person who's listening. And those of you on Patreon who have gotten to know me very well. I'm always incredibly grateful for your support, the fact that you listen and care and respond and encourage me. And it feels like I have my like own little, like very supportive community. And I'm trying to encourage people. I did post something about this, but I'm trying to encourage people on Patreon to use the chat, the like chat room feature that's on there. As we all know by now, I am really bad at consistently checking anything, email, social media, voicemails, anything. I get into like a anti, like I just want to like hunker down by myself and not communicate, not post, and so uh but I love seeing people on Patreon get to know each other. Like I'm constantly talking about myself, obviously. I don't know what, I guess I could talk about the wonders of the world, but that's not me. So I'm talking about myself, things that are happening in my life, things that interest me, things I'm confused about, things I need advice on, the ever evolving and changing status of my career situation, um, the Melvins in the backyard, my relationship. I talk about all of that. And and it feels very one-sided. And I feel bad about it sometimes. Like I wish that Patreon came up with an option where I could give people like like I could turn it on or off. So like for one day a week, I could be like, okay, you guys post. Like you record something on your phone and post it. Let's learn about you. But there isn't that feature. And so the closest thing to that is the chat room feature where everyone can talk freely and openly. You can share pictures. I don't know about videos. But like one of our one of the patrons, Zeka, recently got the cutest puppy that reminds me of Henry a little bit. And he was posting pictures of like, people have posted pictures of where they live, their family. And so it's just nice. It's small. I don't know. There's 20 people on Patreon or something. And so certainly it's not a requirement that you must jump into the chat and tell us about yourself. That feels very rude and bossy and presumptuous of me. But if you want to, I mean, I love it. I like hearing about your guys' life and learning about you and and I would love to know more. So if you are not on Patreon and you want to join this little community, um, please do. Yeah, I share just about everything about my life on there in endlessly long, babbling, rambling audio messages that I record when I walk the dogs or drive. And hopefully Patreon, maybe I'll suggest it. Maybe Patreon will come up with some type of feature where I don't know. I do think you can go live on Patreon, but it's just always felt weird to me because, well, first of all, what if no one's around? So like then I'm going lot, I don't know. I'm not sure how it works. I know on YouTube or Instagram, like people can't actually like talk to you. They can type, but then I'm sitting here reading your messages and responding to them. I don't know. Maybe we just will do another Patreon Zoom where we all hop on and talk. And I would like to do another like in-person drinks, but I do feel like a lot of people that I've gotten to know don't live here. So I don't know. I guess send your suggestions because I like this little sense of I love everyone who's listening in general. I appreciate you immensely. But on Patreon, I feel like I've gotten to know people. And on Instagram, I've gotten to know some people a little bit more. Um, all right, enough talk about that. I feel like I'm really pushing Patreon. I'm not trying to. I just enjoy it and it's the easiest way for me to get to know some of you, which I also enjoy. And I guess if you're dying to hear my thoughts on perimenopause, um, I'm not going to do that right now. That feels excessive. But I like saw this Instagram post. Okay, fine. I am doing it a little bit. I saw this Instagram post. I don't have it in front of me. Uh, for this, I'm going to get it in front of me right now, guys. You know, if if you're not interested, you could sign off, right? That's what I feel. Um, I can't remember which Instagram account I saved it on. Not this one. Well, I read the post. It was like a swipe through with you know, words. Hold on, I can't do two things at once. I should really pause this, but if you're still here, then you know me. Here we go. Okay. So, this I'm finding it. Hold on. Is this it? Nope, that's not it. Nope. Oh, okay. Yeah, this is it. I'm going to read it. Now, this is menopause, not perimenopause, but it's on this account called She Bang Menopause. And I don't know, it popped up to me. It was suggested to me in my feed. Thanks, Instagram. I know I'm getting old. Uh, and and so I swiped through it. It's got it. Well, you're not gonna be able to see my phone, but so the first slide says it's not just hot flashes. It's crying in traffic for no reason. It's waking up tired. It's wanting to burn your life down and also make soup. I, I swear I feel those things on a daily basis. I consider wanting to burn my life completely down and run away. And then also, like, I'd love to make a great white chicken chili today. Waking up tired, 100%. And I've for sure cried in traffic for no reason. And the next one says, it's not just hot flashes. It's forgetting what you were saying mid sentence. Pretty sure you've all watched me do that. It's needing a nap after a conversation. I will want a nap after recording this. It's wondering if you're losing it and knowing you're not. I frequently wonder if I'm losing it and I'm laughing, but I mean it. It's questioning everything you used to tolerate. It's not knowing who you are anymore. It's Googling spiritual awakening at 2 a.m. with one hand in a bag of chips. Not knowing who I am anymore. I could cry right now. Like some days I really feel that way. Some days I feel like so certain and so secure in who I am and where I am and and the fact that I don't know where I'm going and I'm okay with that. And then other days I, I feel so lost and like, what am I doing in my life? And why? And what is the purpose of all of this? And I should have studied religion more and I should have like had a better sense of spirituality. And because now I'm questioning all these things. I mean, I just ordered a bunch of books on Buddhism, like Patreon, I've talked about this, but this slide really resonated with me. And questioning everything that I used to tolerate, like when I think to the ways that I allowed myself to be treated, sorry, but mostly by men in my 20s, I am ashamed. I'm embarrassed and I'm sad for myself. Just all of these things that like, ooh, for a while after my mom died, and that was years ago. It's like 9 years ago. Uh, I became really good at, I guess, compartmentalizing, but basically just not thinking about anything except for this exact moment. Like I got really scary good at it. I was never worried about any bills. I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. When I have to pay the bill, I'll worry about the bill. What am I going to eat later? No. And for like future stuff, forget it. I never thought about that. I could really zero in on whatever I was doing in that exact moment, whether it was watching TV, reading a book, going for a walk, doing work. That's when I was showering, I was showering. Now I bring my phone in and watch TikTok because that's the only time I watch TikTok. So I feel like that is an important thing to say. It's not like I'm watching TikTok all day and I can't leave my phone. I have to bring it in the shower. I also don't know why I'm justifying this. Um, yeah, now I'm not great at that. I find myself annoyed by more things. I find myself worrying about more things, spiraling about more things. Let's keep going. It's not just hot flashes. It's standing in your closet wondering who bought all these clothes. It's changing outfits 4 times before you cancel your plans, anyways. Definitely do that. It's trying to look put together while actively coming undone. And that one really hits me. I don't try that hard to look put together, honestly, because I don't have to go to an office, luckily. But when I do try to look put together, I still feel on the inside like, holy shit, who am I? What am I doing? My life is simultaneously coming together, which I feel like it should already be together at 40, but it is coming together and it is completely falling apart. How is that possible? But that's how it feels. It's fantasizing about faking your own disappearance. It's wondering how far you'd get on one tank of gas and a protein bar. It's planning your exit, then remembering you have to pick your kid up from school at 3. So I don't have any kids, but I have fantasized about like, I'll just leave. Like, I'll just leave. I'll quietly keep working for Jim and doing what I'm doing, but otherwise, I'll just disappear from my life and just start over somewhere. I don't know why. My life is good. I don't need to run away from anything, but sometimes that sounds awesome. It's standing in front of the refrigerator like it owes you answers. It's wondering if everyone's always been this annoying. It's wanting to disappear and then getting mad. No one noticed you were quiet. Oh, so well said. So well said. The other day, I turned off my phone for the entire day. From the moment I woke up to the moment I got in bed, my phone was off. I turned it on like twice to check something, to check like my teachers pay teachers or something, because I couldn't remember the password to get on the computer. And annoyingly, my computer also gets my text messages. So it wasn't like a full cutoff from everything. But I found myself by like 4 being like, wow. When I did turn my phone on to check something, I was like, wow, no texts, no calls. Like no one's noticed that I'm just unavailable. I wanted to be unavailable. I didn't want anyone to contact me. But then I still was like, well, why didn't anybody notice that I was unavailable? So stupid. And I do find myself way more annoyed with people these days. I I like got to know somebody a little bit, like a new person, really liked them, and then realized, oh, I do not like this person. Like they are so annoying and really bother me. And I wish I didn't feel that way because they're nice. Like they seem like a kind-hearted person. I don't think they're a bad person, but most things that they say I find to be like very annoying and irritating. Since when do I get annoyed and irritated? I used to like everyone, like everyone. I wouldn't find anyone annoying. Who am I? This one's good. It's starting a podcast in your notes app at 2 a.m. It's deleting it the next morning. It's cycling between I am the storm and I just want a grilled cheese. I mean, most days I'm like, I'm going to kick this day's ass. I'm starting off positive. Positive things happen to positive people. I'm going to be positive. I'm going to think positive. That's where I begin the day. And then usually somewhere around 1 p.m., I'm like, I just want to crawl into bed and cry a little bit. Like this day didn't go as planned, or life isn't going as planned, or whatever. It's wondering if you need a therapist, a shaman, or a really long nap. It's deciding to burn sage and then forgetting where you put it. It's a whole ass spiritual awakening with a side of bloating. It's a cosmic identity crisis with a target return deadline. It's wanting to be held and left alone at the exact same time. It's becoming the truest version of yourself by accident. And I hope that's true. But the wanting to be held and left alone at the same time is something that I relate to probably more than anything in this. And that's probably a whole podcast episode in itself. We'll just call that one therapy. But recently, I do find myself on a lot of days being like, I don't want to talk to anyone. Like, everyone annoys me. Everyone. Like, everyone. And then also, I want someone to comfort me. I want someone to just snuggle with me and comfort me. Like, how it doesn't even make sense. And then I do hope becoming the truest version of yourself by accident. None of us really can fight menopause, I guess, or perimenopause. But this, perimenopause is something that I see all over social media. My friends have talked about it, this and that. And like, I thought, like, well, that doesn't apply to me. Like, I'm fine. I have energy. My cycle is very, very regular. I'm not there yet. And then I read that and I was like, oh my God, am I in menopause? Like all of those things. I feel all of those things. And especially in like recent weeks and months, I have really felt some of those things and been like, why can't I get motivated? Like, where is that creative spark that I've always had? I don't have I'm not good with numbers. I'm not good with money. I'm not good at a lot of things, but creativity and like finding that like desire to write, to paint, to create, that's always been easy. And lately it feels hard. And that is scary. Something that's always come naturally to you or something that's kind of always been your strong suit for most of your life, suddenly struggling with that, it's frightening and depressing and disheartening and demotivating. And there's definitely part of me that's like, fuck that. Feeling all of these things and relating to all of these things is just called being human. It doesn't matter if you're a woman or a man, or if you're 40 or if you're 20 or if you're 70. Like, I'm not going to blame everything on my hormones or my fading hormones or whatever it may be. And then the other part of me is like, well, no, that's science. Like, my hormones are changing and it fucking sucks sometimes to be a woman because my body went through all these changes when I was younger and now it's going through all these changes again. Like, can't it just stay the same? Can't we just, like, you know, be even keel? Why does this have to happen? Did I not say that I'm not going to talk about perimenopause and I'm just going to sign off and then spend 15 minutes talking about it and reading you an Instagram post? Yep, that's right. That fits right into this Instagram post, being like, I'm not going to do this and then saying, no, I am. So I think we've lost all the men in the room here. But if we haven't, and if there are any men listening, and if you have a wife, girlfriend, friend, sister, mother, in her 40s or 50s who may be dealing with some of these things, be nice to her because it sucks. And you know what sucks more? When the man in your life or men in your life are like, wow, it's that you're getting your period. Now, I've flipped the script on that. And so whenever Mark's in a bad mood, I say to him, are you on your period? Because it annoys me that I've been asked that for most of my life. And so now I think that sometimes Mark has his period and Michael has his period. Like, that happens. It's not an actual period, but they get moody like they're having a period sometimes. I guess I just put that. I see what I did. Yeah. I was saying I don't like that stereotype. I don't like that cliche. And then I just exacerbated it by putting it on Mark. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to sign off now. So before I contradict myself even more. But if you relate to any of this, if you're going through this, I would so love to hear from you. And I'd love to hear your comments, your thoughts, your advice, your questions. Not that I can really answer any of them because I'm just learning about this wonderful world of perimenopause. Why do I keep saying it that way? It's so annoying. And I don't know. I would love to hear from you. And if you have any stories or insight or input that you'd be willing to let me share on here, maybe we'll start a once a month, 40 plus episode. You don't have to be 40 plus to listen to it, but you do have to be 40 plus to relate to it. Because it's the Wild West out here for me with these 40s and everything that's happening. And I never even I'm not having kids. I didn't have kids, and I still am feeling all kinds of ways about this moment in life. But I did say to myself this morning on the walk with the dogs, positive things happen to positive people. I'm going to be positive today. So, how do I spin this on a positive note? Well, you're not alone. And I'm not alone because I think we have some 40-year-old listeners out there, 50-year-old listeners out there. And so that helps me feel less alone. And maybe listening to me helps you feel less alone. So we're going to end it there. From true crime to menopause, you never know what you're going to get here at Death by Southwest. I appreciate you guys for listening. I love you. I will be back on Tuesday with a new episode. And yeah, I really would love to hear from you if you are dealing with any of these same female related things, because some days I feel like I'm losing my mind and maybe it would help to all share. We can all support each other. Okay, that's it. Love you guys. I hope you have a fantastic weekend and thank you for listening. Leave a review, leave a, all the things. They really do help. And even if you don't, I love you anyways. Okay, bye.
Death by Southwest is hosted by Jenna Schneider and Margot Carmichael.
Executive produced by Margot Carmichael.
Produced by Jenna Schneider.
Audio editing and sound design by Margot Carmichael.
Music by Soundstripe.
And a special thanks to Edward R. Murrow for letting us borrow his famous sign-off phrase, good night and good luck.